Are you a venture capitalist, family office, or about to launch your own angel syndicate? Then this week's sponsor could be your next trusted partner. This episode was produced in cooperation with Leva, the leading platform in Switzerland to set up and manage your SPVs and syndicate your deal flow. Leva allows you to set up SPVs from your computer in just 5 minutes, starting from as little as 1,000 Swiss francs. As you know, Swisspreneur runs its own syndicate, and we've been using Leva since our first deal. We couldn't be happier with them. If you're currently setting up your syndicate or structuring your club deal, we recommend you to check out their website, www.leva.pe. That's LEVA.pe. And contact the team for a quick demo.
You don't have to be a founder actually to be an entrepreneur. Of course, like being a founder is really important because driving the company, for instance, in a SaaS from 1 to 1 million is really hard. It's really, really hard. But then also like driving from 1 million to 10 million is a different journey, but it's also hard, right?
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Francine, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here today.
Wow, the pleasure is completely mine. Thank you for having me, Sylvan.
You're the CEO at Avrios, an innovative fleet management software. And before we talk about your impressive journey with the company, we actually want to start with your personal background. You grew up in a small Brazilian suburb, you studied in Sao Paulo, and then received a scholarship to get your MBA at the Babson All-in Graduate School of Business in Massachusetts in the United States. What motivated you to actually pursue this path?
Well, I'm a very curious person. So coming from the countryside in Brazil, actually it's funny because it's countryside for Brazilian people, but it's like a place the size of Zurich, right? So,
of course.
I mean, coming from the countryside, I've always been very curious and I always wanted to see the world. And always had the goal to, once I start a company or be an entrepreneur. So just really followed through going to a business school where it was really focused on that and living internationally.
Yeah, and Babson really has this entrepreneurial reputation, right? So that's the right place to be for you.
Yes.
At the same time, it wasn't your first time that you actually left Brazil, because before that you did an internship in Thailand at Electrolux. How did these international experiences shape you? Because that's, a very specific way to build your career, to really have this international path.
Yeah, actually, I think I've worked pretty much in every continent, but in Africa. Yeah. So I've worked in Thailand, I've worked in Australia, in Europe, in the US, and of course, like Latin America. And again, like back to the point of curiosity, right? And I think this what really shaped me is being adaptable and being flexible and always keen to learn and not take for granted the things that I knew, but always trying to look into the others. And this has really, really shaped me in being a leader and also, dealing with people. Yeah.
I want to say, I guess that's one of the big advantages. You learn about different cultures, and that allows you to be a better leader, to deal with different people from different places, from different cultures. Is that the key benefit that you got in this international experience?
Definitely. And I think that another one is also learning a lot about yourself.
Of course.
Because you always, you are always in uncomfortable situations. And then just learning how you react on many of those situations and how you think through. It's also a very important journey and a growth journey for your internal self. Yeah,
absolutely. And you said before, this entrepreneurial path was something that was very clear for you, that you wanted to pursue it. Where does that drive come from? Did you have any role models in the family or anyone else who inspired you to become this entrepreneurial role model yourself?
I mean, everybody in my family has their business. So I think that always, growing up, seeing my parents always working through their business and building and growing, right? It always felt me inspiring. And actually, for me, it was always like I didn't want to be an employee because I think I just learned that at home, actually. On weekends, I would see them doing accounting and things like this instead of doing other things. So I've learned the value of work hard and kind of like have your own business and taking ownership since I was actually a child.
Yeah. So the exposure to the entrepreneurial spirit sort of led the path for you as well.
Yes, correctly.
And then while you were actually getting your MBA, you were also building your first venture called Cargo 42.
Right.
Is this setup, of combining theory but also practice by building your own business on the side, is that something that you would recommend to entrepreneurs to get started?
Well, yes and no. So basically, let's go back, right? I did this in 2015. If you think about I think the ecosystem for entrepreneurship and starting companies back then, this was like 8 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. It's very different than what it is today. The access to information that you have today is widely available. So whereas it was very helpful to me on that time, maybe I would rethink about how to do this nowadays, just because you have a lot of more information and you have like way more startups and way more companies that have been through that journey, right? Mm-hmm. To really learn. But basically, like from my experience, I worked at Rocket before that, which was kind of like a spike in that sort of like will to start something. Yeah. And then I really said, okay, I have a little bit of the practice. Mm-hmm. Why don't I learn more about the theory? So putting the things together, the previous experience plus trying to get the learning were beneficial. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I see. Do you regret that you didn't go on it full time? Is that something that you would change today?
Well, I went full time after.
Right, but at the beginning.
Yes, at the beginning. I don't regret because I was focused also on building my education. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I don't regret like at all doing that because it really helped me. Yeah.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. And tell us a bit more. How did you first become interested in the freight industry?
So when I was, working in Thailand, working in Brazil, working in Australia, I've always worked in supply chain. Mm-hmm. So it's funny, like I've somehow landed my first job like in logistics, mobility, and then I kept going. And I've always been, like really, really curious. I think since I was a kid, I'll go to an airport and I always try to figure out how do they carry stuff around. Mm-hmm. And I was always like wondering, how to handle things. And that kind of like, not passion, but a curiosity kind of like pushed me. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, added to that, I started working in logistics in Brazil. And that's so inefficient. Even though the majority of the transportation in Brazil in such a large country is through, freights and trucks, mm-hmm. because, of course, they don't have a lot of railroads.
Right.
It's completely inefficient in terms of like 49% of the trucks, they travel empty most of the time because they go to deliver something and then on the way back, they just come back empty.
That's
so
crazy.
That kind of like really looking into the size of the business, the size of the industry, and the size of the opportunity, it was something that always pushed me to actually get really interested about. Yeah.
And today, Cargo 42 is no longer active.
Right.
Can you tell a bit more what led to its end and what you took away as lessons learned from it?
Yeah, of course. I think there are a few things. So first, if you want to get a business like in logistics, like that work, you need a lot of capital. Mm-hmm. It's a very low margin business. And to make it work, first you need to nail the product market fit. And then get a lot of money to really scale. Yeah. So basically the first point is I think we did not nail the product market fit to get to that point. Yeah. We were like really, really focused on one concept and try to put money to make that concept work instead of like being adaptable to really the needs. Yeah. And then I think the second point was, I think one of the key points into building a successful venture is having a very cohesive leading team, right? So a team of founders. And I could not find that in my venture. So eventually we split. And that was also a great learning for me.
Absolutely. It's things that might seem like, oh, it's not working out or it's not going as planned are great sort of learning paths along the way to build your career and then to go to the next level from there.
Yeah, and I think also like learning to let go. It's a very difficult learn, but once you go for it, and then once you get it, it's fine. Then you say, oh wow, it was not so hard, and you're basically ready to the next journey.
Right.
Yeah.
And then after Cargo 42, you actually moved to Switzerland.
Right.
So
yes.
on to the next country. What brought you to Switzerland?
Yeah. So actually, it was love, I must say. Well, while we were always like moving around many countries, right? It felt like, so my partner got transferred from work. And at the same time, I was at the point where things were not going well with Cargo 42. And I said, okay, that's probably a good opportunity for us actually to go to Europe and enjoy Europe somehow, learn a new country. So that's kind of like, it just felt right in that moment. Yeah.
And then in 2018, you joined Avrios as VP of Customer Success. After creating your own venture, how do you feel to join someone else's project and not be the founder or the CEO of the company?
Well, at first, let's say it felt like a little bit strange, maybe for 1 week. And then I was like so immersed.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a founder actually to be an entrepreneur. I think there is a bit of like this concept, right? Of course, like being a founder is really important because driving the company, for instance, in a SaaS from 1 to 1 million is really hard. It's really, really hard. Yeah. But then also like driving from 1 million to 10 million is a different journey, but it's also hard, right? And that also demands like a lot of entrepreneurial skills. So somehow I found myself and I could find also like a lot of opportunities and apply many of the entrepreneurial skills that I had.
Amazing. And what actually interested you about Avrios that you decided to join the company in the first place?
So, I mean, I'm in love with technology and I'm in love with cars, mobility, trucks, anything that moves. Let's be honest, there are not many companies or many startups in Switzerland that could put all of these things together, right? So I did like an easy apply on LinkedIn and somehow... it worked. But eventually, of course, yes. Yeah.
And please talk a bit more about what Avrios actually does, because it's one of the fastest growing companies in the SaaS space here in Switzerland. So how has it came to actually revolutionize, so to speak, the fleet management? How do you do that? What do you do exactly?
Yeah. Well, so basically, I think... the concept is fairly simple. We are just making the lives of fleet managers easier. But one thing that is really particular about Avrios is that, in the day-to-day, in the life of a fleet manager, their job is really manual. There's a lot of like data management. So our secret sauce and what we do very different from other companies is that we use AI to basically... replace any sort of like manual activity and many manual inputs that fleet managers would have. Yeah. So that's kind of like what caused a lot of wow moments and really excitement among our customers.
And I expect that's also how you get rid of the spreadsheets that they probably used before Avrios existed.
Exactly. Yes. And I mean, it's actually it's the majority of the market that is still on spreadsheets, but we really are trying, to build not only a brand, but build a sort of like a movement in the industry so that, leave the past and sort of like move towards the cloud or some digitalization, because honestly, the way that people do their work is really overwhelming. Yeah.
I can imagine.
It's very unproductive.
And on your website, you also talk about the true cost of every vehicle.
Yep.
Can you elaborate a bit more what that exactly means?
Yes. So think about like a vehicle is a hardware, right? And then, it has a total cost of ownership, which is basically how much you are spending on that vehicle along the life cycle. And then, of course, you can calculate that monthly, which is basically, that's my financing fee, maintenance, a fuel, if I have a damage or not. So that's the total cost. Now, the true cost is not only the total cost, but the environmental cost as well. So it's basically your CO2 emissions and kind of like looking into the overall picture. That is like the true cost of owning a vehicle. It's not only about money, but it's also about the environmental impact that you're causing in the environment. Yeah.
And how can you come in here and help companies potentially reduce their CO2 impact?
So, I mean, first of all, we have a lot of data, a lot of vehicles, right? So we can understand the difference between fuel like diesel or gasoline against like an EV or something. So we actually use the power of data to show customers, right? And then not only that, but we help them just to be aware of how they are performing. And I think the first step towards a change is actually being aware. So that's where we begin. And then, of course, we also do quite a lot around education, which means not only just having a product that is showing you the data, but we have webinars, we have ebooks, we have an academy, right? So we're actually also educating, especially because most of the fleet managers, they don't even know that this concept exists, and they don't even know also how can I switch my fleet, towards greener, how can I understand. Sometimes, just maybe choosing one power like over the other in a vehicle, when you look overall globally on the fleet, even if it's not even towards EV, but just the power of the engine, right? Those things are already sort of like influencing.
Of course.
So yeah, we help out on that way.
It seems like we talk about a lot of leverage here, right? Because if you have this fleet with many, many cars, you can have a huge difference in terms of just adapting to, for example, a lower engine compared to a higher engine or whatsoever. So how big does a customer actually have to be to really benefit and leverage your software to manage their fleet?
Yeah. So usually what we've seen is where we have product market fit, basically where our software works really well. It's for fleets around 100 vehicles. And the main reason why is around 100 vehicles, you have a person that is in charge fully of the fleet. So the job of that person is taking care of the fleet, and our solution can become really powerful. However, we have a lot of customers in the range from 20 vehicles plus, which means so from 20 to 8,000. We actually do all of that.
Crazy.
And it's funny because for the smaller fleets, usually you have the receptionist or the owner of the company, a CFO, HR, kind of like taking care of the fleet. It's the job. It's kind of like I have to do my job, and somebody just gave me, okay, these are the cars of the company. Can you just manage? So we do have quite a bit of those as well. And in these cases, I think our AI is super powerful because think about somebody that hates doing a side job, right? Who doesn't, right? So you go to a doctor, and when they have to do paperwork, they hate doing that, right? So with our fleet managers, is the same. And then having AI, it makes kind of like a bit more fun. Whereas for the fleet managers that are operating that full time, it empowers them actually because then they can exchange their time to actually take better decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I also want to talk about the challenges along the way, of course. And one big change happened then, again, not only after you moved to Switzerland, but a bit more than 1.5 years ago, when you actually became the CEO at Avrios. You didn't found the company, you joined as VP of Customer Success, and then suddenly here you are becoming the CEO. First of all, how did you feel in that moment when this opportunity presented itself?
Well, I was not expecting at first, but I felt like super lucky. I mean, not lucky, maybe grateful for the opportunity and super excited. And then I realized that very easily I actually really liked.
Perfect.
And I just went completely full on. I know in the end it was not luck. It was a result of working a lot and working a lot with the founding team as well, building trust with the board, and then slowly things went this way. So it was actually really a cool, very, very important opportunity in my career. Yeah.
And I mean, certainly you did earn the trust of the founders, of the board probably as well,
Right.
to give you this opportunity. But at the same time, I also wonder, what were the thoughts in your head when you were considering this position? Where did you see, the upsides, but also the downsides? What were sort of the decisive factors that then led to a yes from your side?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, good question. So basically, I think the upsides they are quite clear. When many people look, it's a great opportunity actually to build a story, right? I was already kind of like looking into what is the next stage for Avrios and start thinking strategically. Then, of course, getting closer to the investment environment, right? Getting way closer to the board and kind of like out of a sudden discover a lot of different stakeholders that before I was not even aware that existed, right? Because before, when you're an employee, it's kind of like the company is what you know mostly, and then maybe customers, right?
Sure.
But then becoming the CEO, that range of stakeholders really increases. So for me, also being a foreigner in Switzerland, that really sounded like an opportunity to get exposure as a woman, in Europe. So for me, that was a big upside. And in terms of like downsides, it was like, I just had to, I knew I had to work a lot,
Of course.
and give up on some things as well in my life, and have some sleepless nights, lose a bit of more hair, and go through drama, go through difficult moments, difficult decisions, right? But still, I think that valuing both, the upside is way better than the downside. And the downside actually contributes you to enjoy more and to get more things of the upside.
Absolutely. Now, I wonder, when you said you also had to give things up, what were one or two examples that you can share here where you say, hey, now with the new CEO position, that's actually something that you cannot do anymore, that you have to give up?
So for instance, I love to have a routine, and I really try, go to bed at the same time, wake up, do my workout and things like this. So one thing is I have to travel more often, right? I have to be most of the time always really with a lot of energy, and maybe not being able to follow up with my routine puts my energy down. So that was one of the things that I had to sort of like give up. And then the second thing is, even like on my free time, to be honest, I never disconnect. So I had to give up mentally moments when I would just have a peace of mind. And instead, I was always kind of like really thinking, what is the next thing I'm going to do? Right. It's really hard to disconnect as a CEO with such a big responsibility, right? So doing that was also something that I had to give up initially, but that slowly I've been developing, and I can say, like, it has improved considerably.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess you also get used to it then, and then maybe you can find a new routine once you started in a new role, right?
Exactly. And it's just about learning how to adapt and splitting things. So yeah, it's working way better.
Great.
Yeah.
And it's a very intense role, of course. So a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure also in certain periods. I wonder, when you were saying yes to the job, did you have a time frame in mind where you said, I commit myself to, let's say, 3 years or 5 years to do this role, and then not that you would leave, but to at least reassess the situation? Did you have sort of a deal with yourself or also with your partner to say, that's the commitment, and then we reassess?
Yes, definitely. Because I think you cannot aim, like to say, I'm going to be the CEO of this company forever, right? Yeah. So, of course, like being a venture-backed company, and I think it's very clear, right? Everybody knows that in a venture-backed company, eventually at one time, funds from your initial investors are going to expire. There might be some pressure for exit, or you might do a next fundraise, or you might change the company sort of like profile, right? So I had in my mind, let's push this through 2-3 years, and then we sit and reevaluate. if by then we're planning an exit, right, then let's do it. By the time I took over, we were already kind of like shifting a little bit the strategy of the company to gear towards a different strategy that actually led to our recent exit. But basically, I kind of like already had that in mind, the exit and what did I have to do to get there, and how long roughly that would take. Yeah, it just took a little bit less than planned, but I'm not gonna complain about it.
That's a nice surprise. Yeah,
Yes.
usually it's the opposite, right?
Exactly.
And I wonder, you coming in as CEO, of course, you've worked with the company, you've been with the company before, but you were not the founder. Was that a difficult start, or was it actually easier than expected because you've been with the company for quite some time already before that?
Yeah, I mean, being with the company, it was way easier, right? If I had come in, for instance, as an external, I think there are always challenges. But the fact that I was there and I had already built trust with a lot of people actually made this way easier. And I must say that I got the support of, 99% of the company.
Nice.
They were on this, like really on the same journey with me. And I would not have been able to do this if it was not for the respect that I got and the support that I got from the employees.
Perfect. And one thing I'm very interested to talk to you about is the operating system at Avrios. So it's basically the operating system of a high growth startup. I would like to learn more about how you set up the company, how you make decisions, and how you basically run the business.
Okay.
So let's first start with the organizational structure. How is your management team, but also probably the board and in general the teams within the company, how do you organize yourself as an organization?
Yeah. So Avrios is a SaaS company, right? So as in a SaaS company, you have the typical structure, which is like you have your GTM area, right? So your go-to-market team, which is basically you have customer success, sales, and marketing. And then you have the product team, the product and tech team. So these are the backbones of a SaaS organization.
Of course.
The tech, so basically product and making sure that your product is always getting better. You're producing add-ons. You're growing your customers by getting your product better. And the go-to-market, which means let's have an efficient way to acquire customers and let's look into new geographies and let's keep expanding. So those are sort of like the backbones of the SaaS organization. And then, of course, you need to have a very strong people team and a people manager to make sure that the culture is spreading properly, and a financing sort of like operations team that is also making sure that you're invoicing your customers, you're receiving the money, right? You have your accounting, and that you also have all the reports for investors, because in a venture-backed company, you need that, right? Then to your second point around the board, I think it's important to have a nice mix of independent board members and your investors. At the end, you have people that have lots of like different goals within the company, right? So maybe an investor might think differently than an independent board member. So having that mix is super interesting. So the way that our board is structured, right? And a lot of this, of course, it was a lot of like hard work from our past CEO that built some things, but I also changed one or two things, right? So it's a mix between the VCs that have invested. Then we have a really strong industry expert. And then lately, we also brought somebody that is really focused on the product, because it's funny. Sometimes, with a lot of financial people, you are just looking into numbers, but you actually forget what is the vision of the company, what is our product actually doing for people. So always having like that kind of voice is super interesting when you are in a room taking decisions.
Yeah, crucial
It's
to
crucial,
not
yeah.
lose the track where you want to go.
Not only numbers, right? Because we're always like super focused on numbers, but having the outsider perspective that is not focused on the numbers, but way focused on the user, on the market, right? How can we actually adapt our product? It's a challenging perspective to the discussions. Yeah.
So that was about the board. I also wonder, how is your management team set up? How many people do you have there, and what are their roles?
So I think it's the rule of 7. Probably you've heard of it, right? Basically, you're the most productive, like when you have max 7 direct reports. And maybe you can always like push a little bit to 8, but I think 7 is the ideal number. And I actually have 7, which is basically finance and operations in one, then people and culture, sales, marketing, customer success, product, and engineering, sort of like tech with a CTO. So that's kind of like the magic combo that is running the company.
Basically, also the different areas that you described before to make them all work together.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's actually one of the most difficult things, right? You have the different areas that make the SaaS business run well, but at the same time, you sort of have to achieve an alignment across the whole organization, that you not only have the right people in the right seat, but also a well-oiled machine that actually works. How do you make that happen? Because that's probably one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, so I think OKRs are a great tool for that. And of course, it comes from the board decisions, right? The budget and things like what is the strategic direction, cascading into the tactical and then into the operational. So we do that quarterly in the company. It's been a long process until everybody could learn. So I think we've been like 4 years on this journey. First year was like always bumpy. Second year it started getting better, and now people live it. So it's a process, but it is actually really helpful. Yeah.
And once you have the OKRs set, how do you then track the progress and make sure that you stay on course, or realize when you're off track and can take additional countermeasures? Do you have any all hands meetings or weekly meetings to check the progress where you stand?
So one thing that I think is really important, right, is empowering leaders. So every one of these my direct reports within their teams, right, they're making sure that people are just working on those. So of course they have their weekly meetings or every 2 weeks where they're checking that. And on top of this, we do once a month in our all hands. So we have actually 2 all hands a month. But in one of those, we discuss OKRs, or we just give a quick update on red flags. It doesn't make sense in a company level to do more often than this, because it gets, it's too much. But once a month is good, because it's also what I've seen is, again, back to the curiosity, right? It spikes a lot of curiosity among different people into, oh, actually, you're working on this. Like, can you tell me more about it, right? And also gets lots of discussions in our all hands meeting as well. Yeah.
That sounds perfect.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Another thing, what I found surprising, but in a very positive way, is that you really focus a lot on hiring, on the hiring process, on the onboarding, basically on people. Would you say that this is a key function to then really make the company grow?
Yeah, I think if you go to any of our employees and ask, like, what is the thing you like most at Avrios, many of them will tell you it's the culture. I'm really proud to work here. Everything is, you care about people, but at the same time, I feel challenged. I feel like I'm growing. So first, I think our selection process is tough. So we don't want to hire many people, but we want to make sure we're hiring, great talents. And the secret of hiring great talents is that you can trust them and empower them, right? So for me, it's kind of like I want to have people that can feel like they can accomplish things without having micromanagement, and that can collaborate as a group, right? So we really, really focus on that. One of the things that I'm also really proud in the company is how diverse it is. And funny enough, we've never, aimed for anything like that. It just happened as a natural process of being unbiased and, really looking into who is the best instead of like, how do you look, or where did you go to school, right? And not using those kind of like biases that we have in our mind to just, form your community, and that kind of like self-lives, right?
It then reinforces itself, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, what you describe is basically something that every company wants. They strive for, that culture that people really like to work at that place, but also feel challenged and deliver the best work possible. You mentioned, I think, one point that is extremely important, to have a tough selection process, but staying objective and hire the best. What other success factors to build this great culture that people really love, but still feel challenged and then also deliver great work? What are other success factors that you think are important to make that happen?
Yeah, so we have a few things that we say: no drama.
I like that a lot.
So it's a zero drama culture. Just tell what you're thinking. Like, no gossip. It's kind of like, let's just work towards getting better, get curious. It's kind of letting go of being right. I think this is something that people always have. Like, okay, I think things are like this, instead of like, why are you telling me, where are you coming from, right? And this is not only towards the team, but also towards our customers, towards our suppliers, right? So it kind of like shows also to the exterior base.
Absolutely. And then once you find the right people, you also have to make sure that they're actually in the right seat. That's sometimes not that easy. How do you make sure that you have the right people in the right seat, as these seats, as we see exactly with your career, can also change over time?
Yeah, they do. Yes. I mean, of course, that when you're hiring, you have a set of skills and personal values that you want for that position, right? So we run like different questions and different parts of the process to match those. And of course, depending on the role, these are changing all the time. And you cannot like rely only in having one person to define this. But of course, sometimes it's natural, right? So I have an example. Like, we hired somebody for sales, right? And the sales profile is like, it's hardcore. You are on the phone every time. You have to be on the phone. There is no way. And you need to talk, and you should be fearless, right? You have to challenge prospects and so on.
Of course.
And there are people that, they are good closers, but they are not like, sometimes the prospectors and things like this. So once we hired someone that, didn't fit well into this, but there was something open, like in the account management, sort of like upselling structure, which is a little bit different, because there is like, you already have a relationship. You know the customers, everything that person is doing on the product, right? So it's different. You are still closing, you are still selling and generating revenue for the company.
Sure.
We switched that person. She's a rock star.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that, learning and trying to find different spots if things don't work, it is great. Sometimes, unfortunately, this is not possible, right?
Yeah.
And then I think that having both sides to acknowledge this is important. Yeah.
Then you also don't have any hard feelings. It's more like, hey, we tried, it doesn't work out. It's better to go different ways and separate, and that's totally fine too. That's part of life, I guess.
It's part of life, yes. I also had roles where I didn't fit in my early days, and it's fine.
Yeah. And the last part I also want to talk about in a high growth company is, of course, fundraising and financial planning. I mean, despite all the growth, you also need the oxygen to actually be able to breathe and survive as a company, which comes down to funds and the finance part. How do you take care of that? Is that something that you as CEO are heavily involved, or is that something that is more taken care of and delegated to the finance and ops team?
I think it's a mix of both. The CFO needs to have, the vision and the hard selling part, right? Like a hustle, like, and then just go and meet investors and really pitch. The biggest passion should come from the CEO, not from the CFO. But the CFO is a critical part to making that happen, right? Because there is a lot of work to be done, like on the operational sort of like financial side during fundraise that people, many times take for granted, but it should not, because it's a lot of work. So it's really a combo where CEO is selling the vision, is selling the company. It's really like a sales job.
Of course,
It's definitely a sales job. And then the CFO that is making that sale kind of like happen, right? Yeah.
So backing up the vision with numbers that actually check out.
Exactly. Yes.
And one other thing I also want to talk about is, you mentioned going from 0 to 1 million in ARR. That's sort of what the founders did, to get started, to go to product market fit. But then the not easier task to go from 1 to 10 million ARR. and also sort of shifting from high growth VC to a more profitable private equity game. How do you manage that transition? Because I imagine, although it seems to be a very similar game from the outside, from the inside, it must be quite a shift that you had to pull off as a company.
Yeah, it's a different way to run a company, right? And I think, looking into the current environment, I think the whole market is shifting towards a bigger focus on profitability, a bigger focus like on building a healthy business instead of like growth at any cost, right? So of course, like you are still growing well ahead of most businesses in the market, but you're not like tripling your size every year, right? And then, burning 20 times your revenue, right? Which is the case of many companies out there. So acknowledging this and educating your investors around this, it's a tough work and it takes time, right? Because also what I say is VCs, they have a playbook, right? Which is totally fair. And, if you raise money from the VCs, you have to know in which game you're getting into because that it is what it is, you are there to grow.
Sure.
And sometimes things don't go as expected. So basically educating investors around shifts in strategy and working through this with investors and employees as well, right? It takes time, but it's sort of like rewarding because brings optionality to companies in the sense that if you want to reaccelerate, you can. If you want to go to a different game, you can. So you're actually in control of your future and not having to run around always what I'm going to do next year if I run out of cash, right?
That's an amazing position to be in from a strategic level, right?
Yes.
You have way more options to play, but you don't have to.
Correct.
And that's exactly where you want to be, especially in these market conditions right now.
Yes, exactly.
What were some of the biggest challenges of switching from VC growth to more private equity profitability? What was like harder than you expected it to be?
Yeah. So first, like I said, I think educating the employees around this is something that takes time because, of course, everybody's looking in the media and saying, oh, that company IPO'd, oh, that company raised, it just became a unicorn and things like this. So everybody thinks like every startup is like this and it's not the case and that they're gonna be a senior or be a manager or be a VP within 6 months in the company. So educating people around like, hey guys, like let's go back to reality, right? It is definitely one part of it. The second part is taking tough decisions in the sense of recalibrating the business expenses to a point that can actually take you to a path like this. And this comes at a cost. So basically, you have to balance growth at the cost of, becoming profitable or looking into your expenses. And it hurts sometimes, saying like, oh yeah, we can't like have any more that's super nice. We cut some perks at the office or some trips or things like this, right? But you can just, on the other hand, you just get creative around things, right? Yeah,
you get a bigger bang for the buck.
Exactly.
But I would also say what you said, that this is painful, right? I think that's when you're exactly in the sweet spot of really focusing on the right things. Because if it hurts to not do it, it hurts, but it's also for the greater good. And that's probably a good call to make in sake of the overall long-term strategy of the business.
Yeah, it's all about discipline.
Right.
It's really like it's because it's so easy to get lured and you start having ideas and test those ideas and have nice things but then getting straight into that and say, hey, in 2 years this is really gonna pay off. It's hard because not everybody has the stamina to keep going. When I talk about people are quitting, people are leaving the business, you have to replace them. It's like, how many times have I thought like, oh, fuck, I just have to restart everything again, like it's super painful. But again, it really pays off and you just keep going. Keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one last challenge I want to talk to you about. Obviously, when you start as CEO, COVID was everywhere, basically, right? So this was something that really also kept your business, busy, I assume. So COVID, from your perspective, looking back, was that a boost or a big challenge for Avrios?
To be honest, it didn't change a lot.
Okay.
So I think one of the things is having a SaaS business in crisis. It's actually one of the best kind of like business models to have, because you have recurring customers, right? So you have way more predictability. You know what's happening. That's one thing. What I can say, of course, like we had challenges in the sense of smaller companies went bankrupt.
Sure.
Some of the fleets, they had shrinkage because, of course, shortage in the supply chain of vehicles. Like if you try to rent a car during COVID, like how expensive was that? Like, because first, like all the rental companies, they sold the vehicles, right? Because they needed cash, and the vehicles were just in the parking lot. And then when they wanted to buy again, like, whoa, when do I get those cars?
Super expensive.
It was super expensive, right? You go to Spain or something, and then you have to pay such a big amount when before it was super cheap. That's just an example. So of course, like this shortage of vehicles did damage our business in the sense that we have a business model where we charge per vehicle, so you have less vehicles. On the other hand, we saw, okay, our product is actually helping companies to stay on track, to manage their costs. So churn overall, despite smaller companies that went bankrupt, was kept, around the same level as we had. And in terms of like closing new businesses, we also realized that it didn't impact considerably. And for the workforce, it was an opportunity to offer more flexibility. And I think this whole like a hybrid setup, right? It came to stay. So I'm fully against like full remote, but I also like the flexibility to give the employees the flexibility to 2-3 days a week, do half and half. It's beneficial. Extremes are not good. So meeting in the middle and then being able to give this flexibility to the team, it's something that I think it was one benefit as well.
I can imagine when COVID slowed down a bit that you probably also had some tough discussions around, should we go hybrid, should we go fully remote? Because we read that in a newspaper, right? Many employees want a hybrid or even a fully remote setup, while many companies say, no, we want you back at the office for at least some days throughout the week. How do you make that decision? Did you have any tough conversations with the employees at Avrios?
We just served everyone. We sent a survey, and then basically we said, okay, everybody actually likes the hybrid, and thank God. We ended, like we just followed that because that's also what I truly believe on. Yeah.
But why do you think is fully remote not a good idea or more challenging?
I need contact with people. I think there are decisions that just meeting in people it's completely different. What everybody says, like the coffee conversation or just listening to something, it makes a change because also when you join like hangouts or something, it has a beginning and an end, right? It's like maybe you have a bit of small talk in the beginning, but it's not the same. So we tried that. Of course, that I fully understand that there are companies that they go in a full remote setup, but then they still meet, right? So
of course,
it's like you can be fully remote, but then still meet once a quarter or something for a planning. That's also something that potentially could work. Yeah.
But especially with the part of the importance of the culture that you described before, right? This human face-to-face interaction is so critical to also enforce that.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, we are in January 2023 when we record this interview, and you have just announced big news. You have been acquired by Battery Ventures, and you will form an integrated company together with the Berlin-based Wimcar. So first of all, of course, the question, why was that the right step for you and Avrios to get acquired by this private equity company?
Yeah. So like we said, a few years back in time, we had to take some tough decisions because we were looking for optionality, right? And these decisions really were already aiming towards, kind of like a path, a potential path like this for Avrios. And I can share why, right? So we come from a very traditional industry, right? Like fleet management is sort of like many people, like first of all, even defining fleet management is tough. You can think of trucks, you can think of cars, you can think of GPS tracking and telematics, you can think of maintenance. Right. So it's such a broad term that if you Google fleet management companies, you're going to find every company does something different. Yeah. So it's a highly fragmented market. It's a highly traditional market that tends to grow a little bit slower than, consumer industries or even like finance industries and some things like this. Yeah. So when you look into the dynamics of the overall industry, you also see that there is a lot of M&A going on there, simply because it makes sense to the point that many companies are complementary. The market grows a little bit slower than other markets, so you combine to find synergies and have more power to keep growing, right? So of course, looking into the market and looking into the industry, we thought, okay, that can actually be a very interesting play for Avrios in the future. So let's kind of like start already aligning the company towards this. Our product is really complete in the sense that we manage pretty much like the life cycle of the vehicle. So from procurement up to the moment of the sale or the decommissioning, right? So we have every touch point with different suppliers and with the processes and data entry, which allows us, for instance, to connect with a damage management supplier or a vehicle tracking supplier and still provide the holistic view of fleet management. So we said, why don't we just build a platform that can actually become a pan-European or potentially, even larger than this, and really kind of like the one-stop shop solution where you can just actually do everything for this. And so we started pursuing this vision, and with Battery, we felt like the great fit because they had a very similar vision, having studied for many years the market, as they were really educated about the market. They really saw the opportunity and pushed really hard for this. Yeah.
And walk us through this process. How did that work? Like, did they reach out to you? Were you already in touch with them because you know each other? How did everything went down?
Yeah. So many people think like the sale of a company just happens like in 3 or 4 months when you engage a banker and then you have a miracle and you get it, right? So actually, I've been in touch with Battery, for more than 18 months. We've been discussing things and sort of like the progress of the company. They are no strangers, right? So at the same time that I would provide something, some materials to the board, I would have a call with them to keep updating. And I think that builds trust right. and that, keeps the funds engaged as well. And at the same time, educate us around what are the potential points in the company that we have to work through. Could this strategy make sense or not, right? Yeah. So that was a little bit like the start of the process. And then, of course, then later on, because in every process, you need competition. Because, when you fundraise, you don't want to have like, just a term sheet. You want to have like 5, to be honest, like as an entrepreneur. Of course. Yeah. Because you need to negotiate, right? Yeah. So, of course, we had to engage also an investment bank to create some competition. Since our team is fairly small and very lean, we didn't have power to actually run this by ourselves. So engaging with a bank actually showed us that we had quite a strong business, in the sense that in the current market we got a lot of interest, which is something that we can feel proud of. But in the end, the whole conversation and the whole relationship building played a more important role. Yeah. Yeah.
But of course, you also wanted to make sure that you don't sell below value, I guess, to
exactly.
Get a good deal in the end.
Exactly.
Can you walk us through the commercials? Like, did you get a cash and a share part? Do you have any earnouts that you need to acknowledge there? How does such a deal structure look like?
Super simple. It's 100% cash.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's exactly it, with a potential to reinvest in the new company. Yeah, we are creating a new holding. So basically, the whole new company, it's completely new. Who was in the old company is being paid, and then Battery is having the full ownership of the company, plus of course the people that want to reinvest.
Of course. Wow, that's a cool setup.
Yeah, it's very simple and lean. That's easy.
I like simplicity.
Yes, exactly, me too.
What does that mean for you? Now I assume as CEO, you also had some shares in the company, obviously. Does that change your life in any way to have this exit now?
Yeah, so I don't give up that easily, Sylvan. So I'm fully reinvested in the new company because I really believe in it. Of course, that you set some cash aside. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, right? But I'm really excited about the next journey, because I am very confident that is the right thing to do for the business, and I have no doubts that the business is going to be very successful on this new journey, and because of that, I'm fully invested. Yeah.
Well, that's a statement, because I imagine the money that you make in such a deal, that does change your life. You could also say, I invested and I have now some passive income coming in from these investments, stop working. That's not the case for you.
No, I don't know.
Not at all.
No.
Is there anything that you can say about the size of the deal in terms of the acquisition price or a range of acquisition price, to hopefully also motivate more entrepreneurs here in Switzerland to pursue that path?
What I should say is it's within the multiples from the industry.
Okay.
Which I think is something really fair, like in a SaaS business with the profitability profile.
So talking about multiples in SaaS, they have come down a bit, right, recently?
They did, yes.
Are they still between 5 and 10 or more?
Yes, definitely.
More towards 5 or more towards 10?
No, more towards 10.
Okay, perfect. And, people can then calculate, 10 plus million ARR.
Yeah.
So that's a good rough estimation for people to do their maths. So now you already said you're fully invested in the next company, basically the holding. What is next for you personally? What will your role look like in the new setup?
Yeah. So like I said, we are creating a new holding, right? Where basically, and I think Avrios and Vimcar is just the beginning. We don't plan to stop there. We are looking into more companies. We want to acquire more companies actually to be part of this group, because we know that the industry is big enough, and we really believe that we can build a 100 million ARR business there. So I'm actually really, really happy to say I'm the CEO of the new combined entity, and I have no doubts that this is really going to work well. Yeah.
That's going to be an amazing new challenge to tackle. From 1 to 10, now from 10 to 100
Exactly.
ARR.
Yes, I'm not afraid.
Amazing. So, Francine, to wrap up today's conversation, we also prepared some rapid fire questions for you.
All right.
So I either give you a simple question or different options to choose from, and you have to answer in one sentence.
All right.
You ready?
Yes.
Let's go. How many hours of sleep did you get last night?
7.5.
Great. Co-founding a venture or joining it at the growth stage?
Joining it at the growth stage.
Where do you go to recover and relax?
Somewhere where there is nature and good food.
Oh, I like that. Do you make decisions fast, or do you think things through over and over again for a long time?
I tend to take decisions fast.
Nice. What was the biggest professional mistake you've ever made?
Choosing the wrong people to start a new company.
Yeah. Brazil, the United States, or Switzerland?
My heart is in Brazil.
I like that.
But I love living in Switzerland. Yeah.
Fair. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing these very amazing insights with us. Best of luck. Lots of success within the new role and on the path to 100 million ARR.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.